The line at the movie theater was long, and the air smelled of buttered popcorn and anticipation. A young boy, no older than 7, tugged at his mother's hand, his eyes wide with excitement. "Mom, can we get popcorn? Please?" he asked, his voice filled with hope. His mother, a woman in her early 30s with tired eyes but a warm smile, nodded. "Of course, sweetheart," she said, though her heart sank as she glanced at the prices on the menu board. She had been saving for weeks to afford this rare outing. Between her 2 jobs, cleaning offices during the day and working at a diner at night, there wasn't much left for luxuries like movies or popcorn. But her son had been having a tough time at school, and she wanted to give him something to smile about. She counted the cash in her wallet, her fingers trembling slightly. She had just enough for the tickets and a small drink, but the popcorn was out of reach. The boy, sensing her hesitation, looked up at her. "It's okay, Mom. We don't need popcorn," he said, trying to sound brave. But she could see the disappointment in his eyes, and it broke her heart. She swallowed hard, forcing a smile. "Let's see what we can do," she said, though she had no idea how she could make it work. Behind them in line stood a man in a baseball cap and sunglasses, quietly observing the scene. He had noticed the mother's struggle, the way her shoulders tensed as she counted her money, the way her voice wavered when she spoke to her son. There was something about her quiet determination that struck him. When it was their turn to order, the mother hesitated. "2 tickets for the 3 p.m. show, please," she said, handing over the cash. The cashier handed her the tickets, and she turned to her son. "Let's go find our seats," she said, avoiding the popcorn counter altogether. But the man behind her stepped forward. "Excuse me," he said to the cashier, his voice calm and kind. "I'd like to buy a large popcorn and a soda for the boy." The mother turned, startled. "Oh, no, you don't have to," she began, but the man held up a hand. "It's no trouble," he said. "Let him have it." Tears welled up in the mother's eyes as she looked at him. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. The man simply nodded, his expression gentle. "Enjoy the movie," he said, before stepping aside to let them pass. As the mother and her son walked away, the boy clutching the popcorn with a grin that lit up his face, she couldn't help but glance back at the man. There was something familiar about him, but she couldn't quite place it. Little did she know, this small act of kindness was just the beginning of a story that would change her life in ways she never imagined. The mother and her son settled into their seats, the dim light of the theater casting a soft glow on their faces. The boy eagerly dug into the popcorn, his laughter filling the space between them. For a moment, everything felt perfect. But as the previews began to play, the mother's mind wandered, her thoughts drifting to the life she had built, and the struggles that came with it. Her name was Laura, and life hadn't been easy for her. She had grown up in a small town, the youngest of 3 siblings. Her parents had worked hard to provide for the family, but money was always tight. When she was just 19, she fell in love with a man who promised her the world. They married young, and for a while, life seemed full of promise. But when their son was born, things began to change. Her husband, overwhelmed by the responsibilities of fatherhood, started pulling away. Late nights turned into days of absence, and eventually, he left altogether, leaving Laura to raise their son on her own. At first, she was devastated. But Laura was a fighter. She took on whatever work she could find, determined to give her son a better life. She cleaned offices during the day, her hands raw from scrubbing floors and wiping windows. At night, she worked at a diner, serving coffee and pie to tired truckers and late-night regulars. The hours were long, and the pay was meager, but she never complained. Her son was her world, and she would do anything for him. Still, there were days when the weight of it all felt unbearable. The bills piled up, and there were nights when dinner was nothing more than toast and peanut butter. But Laura never let her son see her cry. She smiled through the exhaustion, making up stories about how they were on a grand adventure, saving every penny for something special. The trip to the movies was one of those rare treats. Her son had been having a hard time at school. He was shy and struggled to make friends, and Laura could see the loneliness in his eyes. She wanted to give him a day where he could forget about all of that, even if just for a little while. As the movie played, Laura glanced at her son, his face lit up with joy as he watched the screen. She felt a lump in her throat. She had done everything she could to shield him from the hardships of their life, but she couldn't help feeling like she was failing him. The incident at the popcorn counter had been a stark reminder of how little she could provide. But then she thought about the man who had stepped in, his quiet kindness a beacon of hope in what had felt like a hopeless moment. She didn't know who he was, but his gesture had meant more to her than he could ever know. It wasn't just the popcorn, it was the reminder that there was still goodness in the world, that even in her darkest moments, she wasn't alone. As the credits rolled, Laura took her son's hand. "Did you have fun?" she asked, her voice soft. He nodded, his eyes still sparkling. "Best day ever, Mom," he said, and Laura felt her heart swell. But as they walked out of the theater, she couldn't shake the feeling that something extraordinary had just happened. She didn't know it yet, but that small act of kindness was about to change everything. As Laura and her son stepped out of the theater, the bright sunlight momentarily blinded them. The boy was still clutching the empty popcorn bucket, a wide grin plastered across his face. "Mom, that was the best movie ever," he exclaimed, swinging the bucket as they walked. Laura smiled, but her mind was elsewhere. She couldn't stop thinking about the man who had paid for their popcorn. She replayed the moment in her head, the way he had stepped forward, his calm voice, the way he had insisted on buying the popcorn without a second thought. There was something about him that felt familiar, but she couldn't quite place it. She glanced around the parking lot, half expecting to see him again, but he was nowhere in sight. "Mom, can we come back next week?" her son asked, pulling her out of her thoughts. Laura hesitated. The trip to the movies had already stretched their budget thin, and she wasn't sure she could afford another outing so soon. But the hopeful look in her son's eyes made it impossible to say no. "We'll see, sweetheart," she said, ruffling his hair. "Maybe if we save up a little more." As they walked to their car, Laura noticed a small crowd gathered near the theater entrance. Curious, she slowed down, her son tugging at her hand. "What's going on, Mom?" he asked. Laura shook her head. "I'm not sure," she said, but as they got closer, she overheard snippets of conversation. "Did you see him?" It was definitely him. "I can't believe he was just standing in line like that. He's so down to earth. I love him." Laura's heart skipped a beat. She turned to a woman standing nearby. "Excuse me, what's everyone talking about?" she asked. The woman's eyes widened. "You didn't hear? Keanu Reeves was here. He was in line at the concession stand." Laura froze. Keanu Reeves? The man who had bought their popcorn? It couldn't be. But as she thought about it, the baseball cap, the sunglasses, the quiet demeanor, it all started to make sense. She felt a rush of emotions, shock, gratitude, and a strange sense of disbelief. "Mom, who's Keanu Reeves?" her son asked, looking up at her. Laura laughed softly, still trying to process what she had just heard. "He's a movie star, sweetheart. A really famous one." Her son's eyes widened. "Wow. He bought us popcorn? That's so cool." Laura smiled, but her mind was racing. She had been so caught up in her own struggles that she hadn't even recognized him. And yet, he had noticed her. He had seen her counting her money, seen the disappointment in her son's eyes, and he had stepped in without hesitation. It was a small act of kindness, but to Laura, it meant the world. As they drove home, Laura couldn't stop thinking about what had happened. She felt a strange mix of emotions, gratitude, humility, and a renewed sense of hope. She didn't know why Keanu Reeves had chosen to help her, but she was determined to find a way to thank him. That night, as her son slept soundly in his bed, Laura sat at the kitchen table with a pen and paper. She began to write a letter, pouring her heart onto the page. She told him about her struggles, about her son, and about how much his kindness had meant to her. She didn't know if the letter would ever reach him, but she had to try. Little did she know, this was just the beginning of a story that would touch the hearts of people around the world. The next morning, Laura woke up early, her mind still buzzing with the events of the previous day. She carefully folded the letter she had written and placed it in an envelope. She didn't know Keanu Reeves' address, but she had heard that fan mail could be sent to his management or a studio. It was a long shot, but she had to try. As she got ready for work, she couldn't help but replay the moment in her head, the way he had stepped forward, the kindness in his voice, the way he had made her son's day. It felt surreal, like something out of a movie. But it had happened, and it had left a lasting impression on her. At work, Laura found it hard to focus. Her coworkers noticed her distracted demeanor and asked if everything was okay. She hesitated, then decided to share the story. "You'll never believe what happened yesterday," she began, and soon the entire break room was listening intently. When she finished, there was a moment of stunned silence. "Wait, Keanu Reeves bought your son popcorn?" one of her coworkers asked, her eyes wide. Laura nodded, still feeling a little overwhelmed by it all. "That's incredible," another coworker said. "He's such a good guy. I've heard so many stories about him helping people." The conversation sparked an idea in Laura's mind. Maybe she wasn't the only one who had been touched by his kindness. Maybe there was a way to share her story and let others know how much it had meant to her. That evening, after putting her son to bed, Laura sat down at her computer. She opened a social media account she rarely used and began to type. She shared the story in a post, describing the incident in detail and expressing her gratitude. She didn't expect much to come of it, after all, she only had a handful of followers, but she felt like she had to put it out into the world. To her surprise, the post started to gain traction. Friends and family shared it, and soon strangers began to comment. "This is so heartwarming," one person wrote. "Keanu Reeves is a legend," another said. The post was shared hundreds, then thousands of times, and before Laura knew it, her story was going viral. Meanwhile, Keanu Reeves was on the other side of the country, filming a new movie. Between takes, his assistant approached him with a phone in hand. "You might want to see this," she said, showing him Laura's post. Keanu read through it, his expression softening as he reached the end. "I remember her," he said quietly. "She was trying so hard to make her son's day special. I just wanted to help." His assistant smiled. "Well, you did more than that. This story is everywhere. People are calling you a hero." Keanu shook his head. "I'm not a hero. I just did what anyone would do." But his assistant could see the impact the story was having. "Maybe you should reach out to her," she suggested. "It would mean a lot to her." Keanu thought about it for a moment, then nodded. "Let's see what we can do." Back at home, Laura was overwhelmed by the response to her post. Messages poured in from people all over the world, sharing their own stories of kindness and encouragement. She felt a sense of connection she hadn't felt in a long time, and it gave her a renewed sense of hope. But the biggest surprise was yet to come. A few days later, as Laura was getting ready for work, her phone buzzed with a notification. It was a direct message from an account she didn't recognize. She opened it, her heart skipping a beat as she read the words. "Hi Laura, it's Keanu. I just wanted to say thank you for sharing your story. It meant a lot to me. Let's talk soon." Laura stared at the screen, her hands trembling. This was really happening. Laura's hands shook as she read the message again and again. It was short, simple, and yet it felt like the most important thing she had ever received. Keanu Reeves, the man who had shown her such kindness, had reached out to her. She couldn't believe it. For a moment, she just sat there, staring at her phone, unsure of what to do next. Should she reply right away? What would she even say? Her mind raced with thoughts, but one thing was clear, she couldn't let this opportunity slip away. Taking a deep breath, she typed out a response. "Hi Keanu, thank you so much for your message. What you did for me and my son meant the world to us. I don't know how to thank you enough. She hesitated, then added, "If you're serious about talking, I'd love to." She hit send before she could second-guess herself, then sat back, her heart pounding. She didn't have to wait long for a reply. A few minutes later, her phone buzzed again. "Of course, Laura. How about we set up a call? Let me know a time that works for you." Laura's eyes filled with tears. This was real. This was happening. She quickly replied, suggesting a time later that evening, after her son was in bed. Keanu agreed, and just like that, they had a plan. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Laura went through the motions of work, but her mind was elsewhere. She kept replaying the messages in her head, wondering what Keanu would say, what she would say. She felt nervous, but also excited, like something big was about to happen. That evening, after tucking her son into bed, Laura sat down at the kitchen table with her phone. She took a few deep breaths, trying to calm her nerves. When the phone rang, she jumped, then quickly answered. "Hi, Laura," came Keanu's voice, warm and familiar. "It's good to hear from you." Laura felt a lump in her throat. "Hi, Keanu. Thank you so much for calling. I don't even know where to start." Keanu chuckled softly. "You don't have to say anything. I just wanted to check in and see how you and your son are doing." Laura smiled, feeling some of the tension ease. "We're doing okay. Better, actually, thanks to you. That day at the theater, it meant so much to us. I can't tell you how much it lifted our spirits." There was a pause on the other end of the line, and when Keanu spoke again, his voice was softer. "I'm glad I could help. I've been in tough spots before, and I know how much a small gesture can mean. You're doing an amazing job, Laura. Your son is lucky to have you." Laura felt tears welling up again. "Thank you," she whispered. "That means a lot to hear." They talked for a while longer, Keanu asking about her son and her life, sharing a little about his own experiences. He spoke about loss and resilience, about the importance of kindness and connection. Laura listened, hanging on every word. By the time they said goodbye, Laura felt like a weight had been lifted off her shoulders. She felt seen, understood, and most of all, hopeful. The next day, she shared the news with her closest friends and family. They were thrilled for her, and the story continued to spread. News outlets picked it up, and soon, Laura's inbox was flooded with messages from people who had been inspired by her story. But amidst all the attention, Laura kept her focus on what mattered most, her son. She told him about the call, and his eyes lit up with excitement. "Keanu Reeves talked to you, Mom? That's so cool." Laura smiled, ruffling his hair. "Yeah, it is pretty cool. But you know what's even cooler? Knowing that there are good people in the world who care about us." Her son nodded, his expression serious. "I want to be like that when I grow up. I want to help people too." Laura's heart swelled with pride. "You already do, sweetheart. Every day." As the days turned into weeks, Laura began to feel a shift in her life. The story had opened doors she never imagined, but more importantly, it had reminded her of the power of kindness, and the strength she had within herself. But the journey wasn't over yet. Keanu had one more surprise in store, and it was about to change everything. Laura's life had changed in ways she never could have imagined. The story of her encounter with Keanu Reeves had touched people around the world, and she found herself receiving messages of support and encouragement from strangers everywhere. But amidst the whirlwind of attention, Laura remained grounded, focusing on her son and the life they were building together. One evening, as she sat at the kitchen table sorting through bills, her phone buzzed with a notification. It was a message from Keanu. "Laura, I've been thinking about you and your son. I'd like to do something special for you both. Are you free this weekend?" Laura's heart skipped a beat. She quickly replied, "Of course. What did you have in mind?" Keanu's response came a few moments later. "How about a day out? Just the three of us. I'd love to spend some time with you and your son." Laura felt a rush of emotions, excitement, gratitude, and a little nervousness. She agreed, and they made plans to meet at a local park on Saturday morning. When the day arrived, Laura and her son were up early, both of them buzzing with anticipation. "Do you think he'll remember me?" her son asked as they got ready. Laura smiled. "I'm sure he will, sweetheart. He's really looking forward to seeing you." As they arrived at the park, Laura spotted Keanu waiting near a picnic table. He waved as they approached, his smile warm and genuine. "Laura, it's so good to see you," he said, giving her a hug. Then he crouched down to her son's level. "And you must be the famous popcorn lover," he said with a grin. Her son giggled, his shyness melting away. "Yeah, that's me." The three of them spent the morning together, walking through the park, playing games, and sharing stories. Keanu was down to earth and easy to talk to, and Laura felt like she was spending time with an old friend. Her son was in heaven, soaking up every moment. As they sat down for a picnic lunch, Keanu turned to Laura. "I've been thinking a lot about your story," he said. "And I want to do more to help. I know things haven't been easy for you, and I'd like to make a difference." Laura felt a lump in her throat. "Keanu, you've already done so much. Just being here today, it means the world to us." Keanu shook his head. "I want to do more. I've set up a fund to help single parents like you, people who are working hard but just need a little support to get by. I'd like you to be the first recipient." Laura stared at him, stunned. I don't know what to say." Keanu smiled. "You don't have to say anything. Just know that you're not alone, and there are people who care about you and want to help." Tears streamed down Laura's face as she hugged him. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you so much." Her son, sensing the emotion of the moment, joined in the hug. "You're the best, Keanu." As they packed up and said their goodbyes, Laura felt a sense of hope she hadn't felt in a long time. Keanu's kindness had not only changed her life, but had also reminded her of the power of compassion and connection. But the story didn't end there. Keanu's gesture sparked a wave of generosity, inspiring others to pay it forward. Laura, in turn, found herself wanting to do the same. The days following the picnic with Keanu felt like a dream to Laura. She kept replaying the moments in her mind, the laughter, the stories, and the incredible offer Keanu had made. The fund he had set up for single parents was more than she could have ever imagined, and she felt a mix of gratitude and responsibility. She wanted to make sure his kindness didn't stop with her. One afternoon, as she sat at her kitchen table, Laura decided to take action. She opened her laptop and began typing. She wanted to share her story in more detail, not just about Keanu's generosity, but about the struggles she had faced and the lessons she had learned. She wrote about the importance of community, the power of small acts of kindness, and the hope that had been reignited in her life. When she finished, she posted it on her social media account, along with a heartfelt message. "This isn't just my story, it's a reminder that we're all in this together. If you've ever felt alone, know that there are people who care. And if you're in a position to help, even in a small way, please do. You never know how much it might mean to someone." The post quickly gained traction, just as her first one had. People shared their own stories of struggle and kindness, and the comments section became a space of encouragement and support. Laura felt a sense of purpose she hadn't felt in years. She realized that her story wasn't just about her, it was about all the people who had ever felt invisible or overlooked. A few days later, Laura received another message from Keanu. "Laura, your post was incredible. You have a gift for connecting with people. I was wondering if you'd be interested in working with me on something bigger, a project to help single parents and families in need. What do you think?" Laura's heart raced as she read the message. She had never considered herself someone who could make a difference on a larger scale, but Keanu's words gave her confidence. She replied, "I'd be honored to work with you. Let's do this." The project took shape quickly. Keanu and Laura decided to create a foundation called Hand in Hand, aimed at providing resources and support to single parents and their children. They planned to offer everything from financial assistance to mentorship programs, creating a network of help and hope for families in need. As the foundation launched, the response was overwhelming. Donations poured in from people inspired by Laura's story and Keanu's commitment to making a difference. Laura found herself speaking at events, sharing her experiences, and connecting with other single parents who had faced similar challenges. But amidst all the excitement, Laura never lost sight of what mattered most, her son. She made sure to include him in the journey, teaching him the importance of giving back and showing him that even the smallest acts of kindness could have a ripple effect. One evening, as they sat together on the couch, her son turned to her and said, "Mom, I'm really proud of you." Laura felt tears well up in her eyes. "I'm proud of you too, sweetheart. You're the reason I keep going." Her son smiled. "I think Keanu's proud of us too." Laura laughed, pulling him into a hug. "I think you're right." As the days turned into weeks, Laura felt a sense of fulfillment she hadn't known was possible. She had gone from struggling to buy popcorn to being part of something that was changing lives. And it all started with a simple act of kindness. But the journey wasn't over yet. There was still one more chapter to write, one that would bring everything full circle. The Hand in Hand Foundation had grown beyond anything Laura could have imagined. What started as a small project had turned into a nationwide movement, with people from all walks of life coming together to support single parents and their families. Laura found herself at the center of it all, working closely with Keanu to organize events, raise funds, and spread their message of hope and kindness. One crisp autumn morning, Laura received a call from Keanu. "Laura, I've been thinking," he said, his voice filled with excitement. "I'd like to host a special event, a celebration of everything we've accomplished so far. And I want you and your son to be the guests of honor." Laura's heart swelled with pride. "That sounds amazing," she said. "What did you have in mind?" Keanu explained his vision, a gala event in Los Angeles, bringing together donors, volunteers, and families who had been helped by the foundation. "It'll be a night to remember," he said. "And I want you to share your story with everyone." Laura felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. She had never spoken in front of such a large audience before, but she knew how important it was to share her journey. "I'll do it," she said. "Thank you for believing in me." The weeks leading up to the event were a whirlwind of preparation. Laura and her son flew to Los Angeles, where they were greeted by Keanu and his team. They spent time rehearsing her speech, choosing outfits, and even meeting some of the families who had been helped by the foundation. Laura was moved by their stories, each one a reminder of why this work was so important. The night of the gala arrived, and Laura stood backstage, her heart pounding. She looked out at the crowd, hundreds of people dressed in their finest, all there to support the foundation. Her son stood beside her, holding her hand. "You're going to do great, Mom," he said, his voice filled with confidence. Keanu took the stage first, welcoming everyone and sharing the story of how the foundation had come to be. "This all started with a simple act of kindness," he said. "And it's grown into something truly extraordinary. But none of this would have been possible without one very special person." He turned to the side of the stage, where Laura and her son were waiting. "Laura, would you join me?" Laura took a deep breath and walked onto the stage, her son by her side. The crowd erupted into applause, and for a moment, she felt overwhelmed. But as she looked out at the sea of faces, she felt a sense of calm. These were her people, people who believed in the power of kindness, just like she did. She began to speak, her voice steady and clear. She shared her story, the struggles, the sacrifices, and the moment at the movie theater that had changed everything. She talked about the importance of community, the strength she had found in her son, and the hope that had been reignited in her life. "This foundation isn't just about helping single parents," she said. "It's about reminding all of us that we're not alone. That there are people who care, who want to help, who believe in us. And that's a powerful thing." The crowd rose to their feet, their applause echoing through the room. Laura felt tears streaming down her face as she looked out at them, her heart full. Keanu stepped forward, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Laura, you've inspired all of us," he said. "And to show our gratitude, we'd like to present you with this." He handed her a small box. Inside was a silver bracelet, engraved with the words, "Hand in Hand." "This is a symbol of everything we've built together," Keanu said. "And a reminder that we're all in this together." Laura hugged him, her emotions overflowing. "Thank you," she whispered. "For everything." As the night continued, Laura and her son were surrounded by people who wanted to thank them, share their stories, and offer their support. It was a night Laura would never forget, a celebration of kindness, connection, and the power of hope. But as the event came to a close, Laura knew that this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with even more possibilities. The days and weeks following the gala were a blur of activity for Laura. The event had not only raised significant funds for the Hand in Hand Foundation, but had also brought national attention to their cause. Media outlets picked up the story, and Laura found herself being interviewed on television and in magazines. But amidst all the attention, she remained grounded, always bringing the focus back to the mission, helping families in need. One evening, as she sat on the porch of her modest home, Laura reflected on how far she had come. From struggling to buy popcorn for her son to standing on a stage in front of hundreds of people, her life had changed in ways she never could have imagined. But more importantly, she had found a sense of purpose, a way to give back and make a difference in the lives of others. Her son joined her on the porch, carrying 2 mugs of hot cocoa. "Here, Mom," he said, handing her one. "You look like you could use this." Laura smiled, taking the mug. "Thank you, sweetheart. You're the best." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the stars twinkle in the night sky. Finally, her son spoke. "Mom, do you think we'll ever stop helping people?" Laura looked at him, surprised by the question. "What do you mean?" He shrugged. "I mean, we've done so much already. Do you think we'll ever just stop?" Laura thought for a moment before answering. "I don't think we'll ever stop, because helping people isn't just something we do, it's who we are. It's about kindness, and that's something we can always give, no matter how big or small." Her son nodded, his expression thoughtful. "I like that," he said. "I want to keep helping people too." Laura reached over and ruffled his hair. "You already do, sweetheart. Every day, just by being you." As the weeks turned into months, Laura continued to work with the foundation, but she also made time for the little things, reading bedtime stories to her son, helping him with his homework, and simply enjoying the moments they had together. She realized that while the foundation was important, her greatest joy came from being a mother and seeing her son grow into a kind, compassionate person. One day, Laura received a letter from a single mother who had been helped by the foundation. The woman wrote about how the support she had received had changed her life, allowing her to go back to school and provide a better future for her children. She ended the letter with a simple but powerful sentence, "Thank you for showing me that I'm not alone." Laura felt tears well up as she read the words. She realized that this was the true impact of their work, not just the financial assistance or the resources, but the message that no one has to face their struggles alone. She shared the letter with Keanu during one of their regular calls. "This is why we do what we do," she said, her voice filled with emotion. Keanu agreed. "It's amazing, isn't it? How one small act of kindness can ripple out and touch so many lives." Laura nodded. "It's a reminder that we all have the power to make a difference, no matter who we are or where we come from." As the years passed, the Hand in Hand Foundation continued to grow, helping thousands of families across the country. Laura became a symbol of hope and resilience, but she never forgot where she had started, or the man who had shown her the power of kindness. One evening, as she tucked her son into bed, now a teenager, she looked at him and said, "You know, no matter where life takes us, always remember the lesson we've learned: kindness is the greatest gift we can give." Her son smiled. "I know, Mom. And I'll never forget it." Laura kissed his forehead and turned off the light, her heart full. She knew that their journey was far from over, but she also knew that as long as they continued to spread kindness, they would always find their way. And so, the story of Laura and her son, and the man who had changed their lives with a simple act of kindness, became a testament to the power of compassion, the strength of community, and the enduring belief that no one is ever truly alone. The end.